Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up with Ashland. These are our virtual field trips that we're doing every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're so thankful that you're here. We're going to learn a little bit about Kentucky's history. We're going to learn about Henry Clay. We are going to just spend some time waking up. Maybe you'll be inspired for more research. So I know most of you are healthy at home. We thank those of you who are essential workers that are out kind of keeping the world going. But for those of you who are healthy at home right now, if you see something, if a question is sparked during our conversation today, we hope that you will do further research. And you can do some research at henryclay.org. We also have a curator on staff named Eric Brooks who would be happy to answer any questions that you may have about this history. We'll put his email address in the comment section. We just also hope that you'll reach out to him if you have any questions about genealogy. Maybe you have a question about whether you're related to Henry Clay or anyone who was enslaved here at Ashland. So if you do have questions about that, you can always reach out again to Eric Brooks, and we'll put his email address in the comment section. Eric Brooks, our curator, is also starting a new virtual field trip series next week called Artifact Adventure. So you're going to be able to, delve into some of the artifacts that that have really never seen the light of day or haven't that often. You're going to be able to ask questions. So it's kind of a Q&A with the curator, which is a really cool opportunity. So we're really excited for you to be here today. The Wake Up with Ashland series is sponsored by Dupree Mutual Funds. So we're really thankful for their sponsorship. We're able to bring you these virtual field trips every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 Eastern Standard Time. If you would, go ahead and let us know where you're watching from in the comment section right now. And we're going to be able to answer your questions along the way. So go ahead and put any questions you may have in the comment section throughout, and I'll do my best to answer them in real time. If I'm not able to, then we'll post some answers a little bit later. So my name is Cameron Walpole. I'm the manager of tours and education here at Ashland, the Henry Clay Estate. Today, we are in the study. In Henry Clay's version of Ashland, there would have been a study similar to this, probably in this exact location. And the study really represents to us Henry Clay's three careers. So Henry Clay was an attorney. He was a politician, of course. We know him as the Great Compromiser. But he was also a farmer. So we're going to be talking about those three careers of Henry Clay using some of the artifacts that we have in this really interesting room. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around, and we're just going to start talking. Hi, Sandra from Salt Lick, Kentucky, and Gaynell Warren from Greenville. Okay, we're here in the study. We see Henry Clay. I'll just do kind of a little sweep of the room, let you see where we are, and then we'll kind of get into the story. Okay, so you can actually see, for those of you all who have been watching the last few times, that's where the entrance hall is. So we're kind of just right off of the entrance hall. Hi, Michelle from Worthington, Kentucky. Thanks for watching. Okay, so we're going to start with Henry Clay's three careers. His first career that we're going to talk about is Henry Clay, the attorney. We all know Henry Clay as the Great Compromiser, but he had to get his start somewhere, right? A lot of politicians today are also attorneys. So let's think about Henry Clay as a young man growing up in Virginia. He would have stayed behind at the age of 14 when his mother and her husband came to Versailles, Kentucky, to start a business. So I don't know if we have anybody watching from Versailles. I see Ed Heflin from Beaver Dam. Hi, Ed. Henry Clay stayed behind at the age of 14 in order to study the law, and he was trained by this man. You can see him right there. That's George Wythe. George Wythe was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was also a tutor to Thomas Jefferson. So Henry Clay's law career was in good hands, to say kind of the least about that. So George Wythe trained Henry Clay in the law. At the age of 20, Henry Clay passed the Virginia bar exam and moved west to the frontier to Kentucky. There were already plenty of attorneys in Richmond, Virginia, where Henry Clay was living at the time. So he decided to come out here, be a little bit closer to his family, and have more business opportunities. So you can actually see, it's kind of hard to see in here, but when we do open up to the public, you can come back to Ashland and you can see Henry Clay's law license right there. So 1797, Henry Clay's in Lexington. He is starting his law career downtown Lexington. And I'm showing you right now Henry Clay's bookcase, which would have been in his law office on Mill Street. You can actually see on the second row there, those are Henry Clay's law books. The other ones that are in the bookcase today aren't necessarily belonging to Henry Clay, but that second shelf is. Hello, Mitch and Julie from Greenville. Now, Henry Clay as an attorney, was he a good attorney? He was. He was one of the best attorneys of his time. He practiced at every level, all the way up to the Supreme Court level. Henry Clay also filed the first amicus brief. You may have heard that term before, an amicus brief. You've probably heard it because it's used in the Supreme Court to this day very often, and Henry Clay was the first one to file an amicus brief. But as an attorney, how was Henry Clay making his money? Well, like we kind of discussed, Henry Clay, Kate's saying second from the top. You can see those books belonging to Clay, his original law books. Now, when Henry Clay was here in Kentucky, this is the West, we have frontiersmen who are claiming land. So they're, maybe not doing it as officially as they needed to be doing it. And so Henry Clay kind of comes in and he is able to settle those land disputes. And he gained a bulk of his wealth from those cases. So even in his law career, Henry Clay was kind of acting as a compromiser. And he did gain a lot of wealth that way. One way he also gained wealth in his career as an attorney was because he lived and participated in a slave society. So at the time, of course, slavery was the law of the land. And so many of the people who Henry Clay, many of his clients were enslavers. And that means that Henry Clay also, benefited from the slave society. Had Henry Clay never owned any enslaved people, he still would have benefited from the slave society. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the tour today as well. So now Henry Clay is practicing the law here in Kentucky, but he's also a politician, right? So I'm going to show you this image, which was a campaign image. You can see Henry Clay here, and I also want to kind of ask you all, how does this, to a viewer, to a voter, what does this say about who Henry Clay is? So I'm going to actually ask you to go ahead and comment in the comment section. What is Henry Clay trying to tell his voters or his constituents about who he is? We're going to kind of break this down for our students who are watching at home. So Daniel, thank you. Daniel says, as a country gentleman. Exactly right. So Daniel probably sees that Henry Clay is not sitting at a desk in this image. He is not in Washington, D.C. very clearly. He's on a farm, his Ashland farm. This was a farm of over 600 acres. So as a politician, Henry Clay wanted to ensure that people knew that he wasn't just some DC insider. He was someone who had Southern interests at heart. He was someone who understood what the planter class wanted. So, as we talk about politics throughout our tours that you're going to see each week, you will notice some trends that live on in politics to this day. So it's kind of interesting to see how we've adapted those general themes that Henry Clay was even using as a politician. Marilyn says it looks like there's a storm behind him. That's a very good point. So if you see there's a storm brewing, storms are often used in these political imagery, storm clouds, to show a problem, right? So a storm is coming. So if you want to think about it, one way to interpret it would be to say that Henry Clay was living at a time of a great political upheaval, meaning that there was tension between the North and the South on the issue of slavery and other issues as well. So this storm is brewing. So maybe that's what the storm symbolizes in this painting. So thank you, Marilyn, for pointing that out. But yeah, he's a country gentleman. He is somebody who's going to have the planter class in mind. So that's Henry Clay, the attorney, and that's Henry Clay, the politician. But about this painting, Henry Clay said that he thought he made a better farmer than he did a politician. And, maybe that's right. He ran for the presidency 3 times, 1824, 1832, and again in 1844. And of course, we don't have a President Henry Clay, do we? So he never did win the presidency, but he served in, countless positions, from U.S. Senator to state senator, Secretary of State, and Speaker of the House. But he always loved coming back here to Ashland because he found some, solace here. He loved working as a farmer. He's what we call today a scientific farmer. So think about Thomas Jefferson, kind of in the same vein, someone who's experimenting constantly with new crops or how to grow a crop the best, or maybe it's experimenting with livestock. So Henry Clay bred mules here at Ashland, and those mules would be sold to the South. Now, why are mules important? Well, they're a whole lot better of a work animal than horses. So you can see mules over here as well. So he's breeding mules here, selling them south onto the big plantations in the South, and he's making a great deal of money from his livestock business. Of course, Henry Clay and his family would not have been the ones doing the labor. It would have been enslaved people who were maintaining the livestock operation, breeding and training horses. We'll talk about later in the tour. Another day, we're going to talk about horse racing. So this is all work done by enslaved people. Henry Clay also entered contests. Kind of think about our 4-H contests today for our students who are watching, breeding the best livestock. And this is maybe a julep cup here that inscribed in it, it's for Henry Clay. So he's constantly winning these livestock and breeding competitions. So Elaine, I see Elaine McDonald from Lexington. Welcome, Elaine. And if you have any questions along the way, please go ahead and enter those into the comment section. Daniel says that Henry Clay should have won the election in 1844. That was a close one, right, against James K. Polk. And that was one that really hurt Henry Clay. Now, what about crops? So we have here, here, let me give you one more example of livestock. We have Hereford Cattle. If we have any students who are in 4-H, or maybe they breed cattle even at their homes, we kind of work with the bluegrass stockyards quite a bit. Hereford cattle are still seen today, but Henry Clay actually imported the first Hereford cattle to the United States from Great Britain. And so that was in 1817. So you can see a Hereford cattle here. He found that in breeding them, he was constantly trying to make notes and improve stock. He found that the Hereford cattle were too, they didn't really care about what they were eating. They would eat the wrong thing, and they weren't growing as well as he wanted. So he actually decided to go with different cattle. Ed Heflin says he loves that table. I assume you're talking about this one. I'll give you another closer look on the table here. And one more thing before we move on to crops. It's just a really cool artifact, and I would be remiss if I didn't show it to you. So you see Henry Clay here, and you see the cane that he's using. It kind of looks like a branch, but it's topped with silver. So I want to show you right here, we have what looks to be that same cane owned by Henry Clay. So likely the one that is used in the painting that you see there. So I just have to show that to you because it's too cool. Okay, now we're going to move on to hemp. This was the big cash crop during Henry Clay's time. I'm showing you here a textbook that Henry Clay had written a chapter in on hemp production in Kentucky. So hemp was the big cash crop. Today, hemp is making a really big comeback in Kentucky. It has just seen its legalization again. And for those of you who don't know too much about hemp, maybe you're still kind of learning about it, Hemp, while it is a cousin to the marijuana crop, it does not have the same hallucinogenic effects that its cousin marijuana has. So hemp is used still today for all sorts of different things. During Henry Clay's time, it was used to bag cotton. So think about how the cotton industry during the 1800s is on the rise in the South, right? So as such, the hemp industry was going to benefit from that because it was making hemp bagging to bag the cotton to be sent to the North to turn into textiles. We also know that it was used for rope, and Henry Clay wanted to see Ashland hemp, Kentucky hemp, American hemp sent to the Navy. They were using Russian hemp to make the rope for the Navy, and so he wanted to make sure that those were American-made goods that the Navy was purchasing. So I'm showing you here this textbook, this entry of Henry Clay's, and he says that one reason that hemp production in Kentucky is so profitable is because of the abundant supply of slave labor. Now, this is really interesting because obviously we know a 600-acre estate. Henry Clay was an enslaver. He enslaved, we have names for 122 people that he enslaved, but we know that he purchased over 60 people over the course of his life and then went on to enslave many other. Shirley Hightower asks who was his wife. So Henry Clay's wife was Lucretia Hart Clay. And she was the daughter of Thomas Hart, who was a wealthy hemp merchant in Lexington. So thank you, Shirley. That was actually a great segue. Henry Clay was introduced to the hemp crop by his father-in-law, Thomas Hart. But I want to show you, this is a blown-up image here of a primary source document. And so for our students who are watching, you know what a primary source document is. It's a piece of paper or some sort of document, or maybe it's a letter or a diary entry that helps us learn about the past. Well, this piece, this primary source, is from a memo book or a stock book, a farm ledger perhaps. And it says, I'll try to get up close without the glare, hemp breaking at Ashland commencing the 15th of January, 1842. And so what is hemp breaking? Well, hemp breaking is the process of turning these huge stalks that can grow up to 13 feet high. They've got woody outer husks. It's the process of turning those husks into fiber, so turning the stalk into fiber. And this was back-breaking work, and it was done by enslaved people. So I want to show you this document because it's got some really cool entries here. You can actually see the names of some of the people who were enslaved. So we have Frank, Buck, William, Stepney, Matt, Jim, Todd, Watkins, Lewis. Really, really cool. So you can see here some of the names, and the numbers beside the names are the amount of the pounds of hemp that were broken in a day. They were also given a task. So you can see here the task on the 5th of February, 1852 was 100 pounds. So you can see that Jim broke 89 pounds, Frank broke 104 pounds, and so on. So this is a really interesting document that gives us a little bit of insight into what hemp breaking was like. We know that this was done in the cold of winter, but the hemp crop was cultivated year-round. Now, I also want to show you a cool image here. Let me see if I can get it without the glare. You can see a memorandum book here. Some of Henry Clay's writing is in it. It's just kind of a cool artifact. When we have students who come to Ashland, they always want to see Henry Clay's writing. I'll also show you Henry Clay's document box. And while I'm kind of showing you some artifacts, I want to go ahead and ask if there are any questions. You can see here, oh, there's a light, thank you. It says Mr. Clay on it. There's kind of a glare, but that's his document box that he would have taken with him to his downtown law office. Nikki Anderson, hello from Lexington. So that kind of sums up Henry Clay's three careers: an attorney, a politician, and a farmer, what we call a scientific farmer. And I want to go ahead and see if there are any questions in our viewers today. So please go ahead and add those to the comment section if you have any. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of pan the room and show you some of the cool artifacts. We have a decanter here. Henry Clay did drink some bourbon. He was also a big fan of Madeira wine. What is hemp? Thank you, Marilyn. So hemp is a crop that can grow up to 13 feet high. And it's a crop that it kind of looks like, if you kind of think about what bamboo looks like, maybe it does have some leaves and that sort of thing. But it's a crop that can be broken down and created into hemp fiber. And that fiber can be turned into rope. It can be turned into textiles. Today, we have car parts that are made out of hemp. When we bring students here, we ask them what hemp is, and they say CBD. So yeah, it's also used for CBD oil, which is used for a variety of reasons. So that's what is hemp used for today? Yeah, CBD oil is probably one that we see most frequently, but it is far from the only use for hemp. Hemp can be used to make paper, and because if you think about how long it takes for a big tree to grow, hemp, its life cycle is much quicker. So when making paper, it's much better for the environment. Is that his son with the jack in the painting? Yeah, so that's his son. Maybe Kate in the comments knows which son that is with his jack in the painting. So we have Jacks and Jennies, the male and female donkeys. Okay, are there any other questions? This is one of my favorite rooms in the house. It just gives us a really great opportunity to talk about Henry Clay, the politician, the farmer, the statesman, the attorney. It's really cool to kind of think about these three careers. We said John. Michelle was asking about if this was Henry Clay's son. Yeah, that's John there. There we go. Eric Brooks, our curator, says that is John M. Clay. So very good. Thank you for Kate and Eric who are watching from home and providing some assistance. Okay, well, we're going to end there. I just want to thank you all so much for joining our Facebook Live virtual field trip, Wake Up with Ashland. We're doing this every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you always have an opportunity to participate. Include any comments or questions that you may have. Close up of the clock, Julie says. Okay, we can turn around and see the clock, and I'll do that while I'm talking. So you can see a campaign image of a young Clay there on the clock. So we're doing this every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If we have any students who are watching, we would love to know what school you're going to. Who knows, maybe your teachers will give you extra credit. I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. Now, we want you to make sure that you're visiting henryclay.org. If you have some cool artifacts in your family, and let me remind you, these do not need to be old artifacts. We want to see them. We want to see your links to your Kentucky family. If you go to henryclay.org, go to blog, you can see our Making History Today, Our Kentucky Families online exhibit. You can contribute your artifact. And again, you do not have to have deep roots in Kentucky. You can just have moved here in the last year, and you consider yourself a Kentucky family, and you want to share an artifact of something that reminds you of your time, that tells a story about who you are as a Kentuckian. We want to see those. We're compiling that right now, so please contribute to that. We want to thank our sponsors, Dupree Mutual Funds, for contributing and making this possible. And we also want to ask you to become a member when we open up to the public, and we hope that is soon. We want to make sure that we have lots of new friends who've been maybe watching online. You can actually come to Ashland with your membership and take a tour at any time. We talked in this tour today a lot about slavery. So we also have a brand new tour that launched early this year in March called Traces, Slavery at Ashland. And this is an indoor-outdoor tour about the institution of slavery and the people who were enslaved here at Ashland. So it's a great opportunity to learn a perspective that maybe you haven't heard before. The issue of slavery is obviously included on our Signature Mansion tour, which runs every hour on the hour. when we're open, but this gives you a more in-depth view into the lives of people who were enslaved. So I want to thank you all again for joining us for another Wake Up with Ashland. We hope to see you on Tuesday. We want you to be safe and healthy at home. We want to thank again our essential workers who are keeping everything going. We don't know what we'd do without you, so we thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. If you have any ideas of things that you really want to see on the tour, let us know, and we can kind of cater this to you all. If you have things that you're wanting to see, this is what's so great about these virtual field trips is there aren't really any rules. You can tell me what you want to see, and we'll maybe do a close-up of a given artifact. And I'm going to kind of end here, and I'm going to show you the anaglypta that you see throughout here. So we thank you again for coming, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday. Thank you all so much.